Hey guys, it's Jeff, and today I wanted to talk to you about a technique for getting locks opened if you can't get them picked. Now, I've mentioned before, I get a lot of these residential type locks. This is just a quick set, and I get a lot of these from the Restore. And because these are old donated locks, it is not unusual for me to find ones that are so gunked up that I can just barely even get the pins to move. But as long as I can get them to move somewhat, I can get in here and clean them up using a technique called rear shimming. Now, doing the poor man's picking as I do, my shims are cheap and they're DIY. Many of you have probably seen these security tags on different items at the store. Honestly, with young children, I've gotten most of mine on formula. Sometimes you see these on DVD cases. But what happens is inside of these are thin pieces of metal. So I'll take a knife and cut this open so I can get the metal out, which gives me these thin pieces right here. Whoop. Now you'll notice that sometimes you might want to cut a notch in them. Cutting a notch in them is going to allow them to hold the pins a little bit easier, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a moment. So what we do is we take a lock like this, and it has to be a lock that we have access to the rear of. And if you notice, I already took the clip off the back of the lock. So for the long time, what I would do is I would stick this shim right in there. It's in between the core and the case or the Bible there, and it goes up until it hits the first pin. And then what I would do is I would take my my pick, put it in. I would try to find that back pin, and I would try to raise it to just the right height so that this shim would fit between the driver pin and the key pin. So once that back pin was raised to the shear line, even if it didn't set, the shim could fit in between. By doing this, I could progress along. Once I have the shim in place there, if I get the pick back there and try to push on that pin, it's just solid. You don't feel any springiness. And sometimes it even deforms the shim right there. I saw it for a moment. But this has been really difficult for me. I can only get so far. Honestly, a lot of times I'm having trouble with the last couple. And if I could at least get the shim in between 2 or 3 of the pins, then I would still put in a tensioner and I'd pick the front 2 or 3 pins that were remaining. However, recently, I was at a flea market and I found key blanks cheap. I found KW1 for $1. I've seen these usually $3 or so at Walmart, so it's not a big savings, but it's enough that I feel more comfortable spending it. And I got some SC1 blanks for $1, and there are a bunch in here. I hadn't thought about it before, but I think key impression is going to have to be in my future, in addition to a couple other ideas with these. But I'm going to keep one of these blanks specifically for shimming locks. So what happens is that since the front of the blank has the slope on it, it makes it much easier to do the shimming. So what happens is I apply some pressure to my shim, and I slowly pull the blank out, and as I do, the key pin is riding down the front there, which means it's slowly moving along, which increases my control. There we go, got that first one. And notice that once I've got a pin shimmed, the key's not going to go in as far anymore. So slow removal of the key while applying pressure to the shim, think I'm two, yep. See how that key won't go in any further? I think I've got at least 1 or 2 pins now. And you just progress along the lock, and so I found it works best to pull out the key a little bit, push it back in, pull it out, push it in, hopefully setting a few each time. There we go. And this is just really helpful for locks that, especially if it's because of things like dirt and grime, you just can't get open otherwise. I think we're almost there. Using this technique can get you open so you can repin the lock. I honestly, on some of these old locks, I'll take out the pins. I will rub them down with a little bit of steel wool or sandpaper or something. Check this out. I've got this open now from using some thin metal and a key blank. So now I could take out this core, I could repin it, clean up the core, clean up the pins, whatever I need to. Just a really great technique for locks that you might not be able to do anything with otherwise, and using some cheap materials. Again, it's possible to do with your pick and the shim. If you're doing that, you're going to want to put this in a vise, because as you saw, it's a balancing act trying to hold the lock, push on the shim, and do the picking. But getting a key blank definitely makes that easier. Anyways, that is rear shimming of a lock. I hope that helps someone out there. If you know of any other reasons that you have used rear shimming, if you've used this before, tell me about it in the comments below. I hope this helps someone out. And guys, I'll talk to you later.